Καλησπέρα και καλώς ήρθατε σε άλλη μια λέξη εκφραστικής ανάγνωσης εν μέσω κορονοϊού 2020. Επιτέλους επιστρέφουμε στο αφιέρωμά μας στον Laurence Sterne για να διαβάσουμε τα 5 πρώτα κεφάλαια από τον 7ο τόμο. The Life and Opinions of Tristram Shandy, Gentleman. Non enim excursus hic eius, sed opus ipsum est. Ilius. Volume 7. Chapter 1. No, I think I said I would write 2 volumes every year, provided the vile cough which then tormented me, and which to this hour I dread worse than the devil, would but give me leave, and in another place, but where I can't recollect now, speaking of my book as a machine, and laying my pen and ruler down crosswise upon the table, in order to gain the greater credit to it, I swore it should be kept a-going at that rate these 40 years, if it pleased but the fountain of life to bless me so long with health and good spirits. Now, as for my spirits, little have I to lay to their charge, nay, so very little, unless the mounting me upon a long stake and playing the fool with me 19 hours out of the 24 be accusations, that on the contrary, I have much, much to thank them for. Cheerily have ye made me tread the path of life with all the burdens of it, except its cares, upon my back. In no one moment of my existence that I remember have ye once deserted me, or tinged the objects which came in my way, either with sable or with a sickly green. In dangers ye gilded my horizon with hope, and when death himself knocked at my door, ye bade him come again. And in so gay a tone of careless indifference did ye do it, that he doubted of his commission. There must certainly be some mistake in this matter, quoth he. Now there is nothing in this world I abominate worse than to be interrupted in a story, and I was at that moment telling Eugenius a most tawdry one in my way, of a nun who fancied herself a shellfish, and of a monk damned for eating a mussel, and was showing him the grounds and justice of the procedure. Did ever so grave a personage get into so vile a scrape? Quoth Death. Thou hast had a narrow escape, Tristram, said Eugenius, taking hold of my hand as I finished my story. But there is no living, Eugenius, replied I, at this rate. For as this son of a whore has found out my lodgings— You call him rightly, said Eugenius, for by sin, we are told, he entered the world. I care not which way he entered, quoth I, provided he be not in such a hurry to take me out with him. For I have 40 volumes to write, and 40,000 things to say and do, which nobody in the world will say and do for me, except thyself. And as thou seest, he has got me by the throat, for Eugenius could scarce hear me speak across the table, and that I am no match for him in the open field, had I not better, whilst these few scattered spirits remain, and these 2 spider-legs of mine, holding one of them after him, are able to support me, had I not better, Eugenius, fly for my life? It is my advice, my dear Tristram, said Eugenius, then by heaven I will lead him a dance he little thinks of, for I will gallop, quoth I, without looking once behind me to the banks of the Garonne. And if I hear him clattering at my heels, I'll scamper away to Mount Vesuvius, from thence to Joppa, and from Joppa to the world's end, where if he follows me, I pray God he may break his neck. He runs more risk there, said Eugenius, than thou. Eugenius' wit and affection brought blood into the cheek from whence it had been some months banished. 'Twas a vile moment to bid adieu in. He led me to my chaise. Allons, said I. The post-boy gave a crack with his whip. Off I went like a cannon, and in 6 bounds got into Dover. Chapter 2. Now hang it, quoth I, as I looked towards the French coast, a man should know something of his own country too before he goes abroad, and I never gave a peep into Rochester church, or took notice of the Dog of Chatham, or visited St. Thomas at Canterbury, though they all 3 laid in my way. But mine indeed is a particular case. So, without arguing the matter further with Thomas O'Becket or anyone else, I skipped into the boat, and in 5 minutes we got under sail and scudded away like the wind. Pray, captain, quoth I, as I was going down into the cabin, is a man never overtaken by death in this passage? Why, there is not time for a man to be sick in it, replied he. What a cursed liar, for I am sick as a horse, quoth I, already. What a brain, upside down. Heyday, the cells are broke loose one into another, and the blood and the lymph and the nervous juices with the fixed and volatile sorts are all jumbled into one mass. Good, everything turns round in it like 1,000 whirlpools. I'd give a shilling to know if I shan't ride the clear of it for it. Sick, 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 sick. When shall we get to land, Captain? They have hearts like stones. Oh, I am deadly sick. Reach me that thing, boy. 'Tis the most discomforting sickness. I wish it was at the bottom. Madam, how is it with you? Undone, 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 sir. What, the first time? No, 'tis the second, third, sixth, 10th time, sir. Heyday, what a trampling overhead. Hello, cabin boy, what's the matter? The wind chopped about, 'sdeath. Then I shall meet him full in the face. What luck! 'Tis chopped about again, master. Oh, the devil chop it. Captain, quoth she, for heaven's sake, let us get ashore. Chapter 3. It is a great inconvenience to a man in haste that there are 3 distinct roads between Calais and Paris, in behalf of which there is so much to be said by the several deputies from the towns which lie along them, that half a day is easily lost in settling which you'll take. First, the road by Lille and Arras, which is the most about, but most interesting and instructing. The second, that by Amiens, which you may go, if you would, see Chantilly, and that by Beauvais, which you may go, if you will. And for this reason, a great many choose to go by Beauvais. Chapter 4. Now, before I quit Calais, a travel writer would say, it would not be amiss to give some account of it. Now I think it very much amiss that a man cannot go quietly through a town and let it alone where it does not meddle with him, but that he must be turning about and drawing his pen at every kennel he crosses over, merely, o my conscience, for the sake of drawing it. Because if we may judge from what has been wrote of these things by all who have wrote and galloped, or who have galloped and wrote, which is a different way still, or who, for more expedition than the rest, have wrote galloping, which is the way I do at present, from the great Addison, who did it with his satchel of school books hanging at his and galling his beast's crupper at every stroke, there is not a galloper of us all who might not have gone on ambling quietly in his own ground, in case he had any, and have wrote all he had to write, dry-shod as well as not. For my own part, as heaven is my judge, and to which I shall ever make my last appeal, I know no more of Calais, except the little my barber told me of it, as he was whetting his razor, than I do this moment of Grand Cairo. For it was dusky in the evening when I landed, and dark as pitch in the morning when I set out, and yet by merely knowing what is what, and by drawing this from that in one part of the town, and by spelling and putting this and that together in another, I would lay any travelling odds that I this moment write a chapter upon Calais as long as my arm, and with so distinct and satisfactory a detail of every item which is worth a stranger's curiosity in the town, that he would take me for the town clerk of Calais itself. And where, sir, would be the wonder? Was not Democritus, who laughed 10 times more than I, town clerk of Abdera? And was not, I forget his name, who had more discretion than us both, town clerk of Ephesus? It should be penned, moreover, sir, with so much knowledge and good sense and truth and precision. Nay, if you don't believe me, you may read the chapter for your pains. Chapter 5. Calais, Calatium, Calusium, Calasium. This town, if we may trust its archives, the authority of which I see no reason to call in question in this place, was once no more than a small village belonging to one of the first Counts de Guines, and as it boasts at present of no less than 14,000 inhabitants, exclusive of 420 distinct families in the Basseville or suburbs, it must have grown up little by little, I suppose, to its present size. Though there are 4 convents, there is but 1 parochial church in the whole town. I had not an opportunity of taking its exact dimensions, but it is pretty easy to make a tolerable conjecture of them. For as there are 14,000 inhabitants in the town, if the church holds them all, it must be considerably large, and if it will not, It is a very great pity they have not another. It is built in form of a cross and dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The steeple, which has a spire to it, is placed in the middle of the church and stands upon 4 pillars, elegant and light enough, but sufficiently strong at the same time. It is decorated with 11 altars, most of which are rather fine and beautiful. The great altar is a masterpiece in its kind. It is of white marble, and as I was told, near 60 feet high. Had it been much higher, it had been as high as Mount Calvary itself. Therefore, I suppose it must be high enough in all conscience. There was nothing struck me more than the great square, though I cannot say it is either well paved or well built, but is in the heart of the town, and most of the streets, especially those in that quarter, all terminate in it. Could there have been a fountain in all Calais, which it seems there cannot, such an object would have been a great ornament. It is not to be doubted but that the inhabitants would have had it in the very centre of this square. Not that it is properly a square, because it is 40 feet longer from east to west than from north to south, so that the French in general have more reason on their side in calling them places than squares, which, strictly speaking, to be sure they are not. The town-house seems to be but a sorry building, and not to be kept in the best repair. Otherwise it had been a second-rate ornament to this place. It answers, however, its destination, and serves very well for the reception of the magistrates who assemble in it from time to time, so that it is presumable justice is regularly distributed. I had heard much of it, but there is nothing at all curious in the Courgin. It is a distinct quarter of the town, inhabited solely by sailors and fishermen. It consists of a number of small streets, neatly built and mostly of brick. It is extremely populous, but as that may be accounted for from the principles of their diet, there is nothing curious in that neither. A traveller may see it to satisfy himself. He must not omit, however, taking notice of La Tour de Guet upon any account. It is so called from its particular destination, because in war it serves to discover and give notice of the enemies which approach the place, either by sea or land. But this monstrous high, and catches the eye so continually, you cannot avoid taking notice of it, if you would. It was a singular disappointment to me that I could not have permission to take an exact survey of the fortifications, which are the strongest in the world, and which from first to last, that is, from the time they were set about by Philip of France, Count of Boulogne, to the present war, wherein many reparations were made, have cost, as I learned afterwards from an engineer in Gascony, above 100 millions of livres. It is very remarkable that at the Tête de Gravelin, and where the town is naturally the weakest, they have expended the most money, so that the outworks stretch a great way into the campaign, and consequently occupy a large tract of ground. However, after all that is said and done, it must be acknowledged that Calais was never upon any account so considerable from itself as from its situation, and that easy entrance which it gave our ancestors upon all occasions into France, it was not without its inconveniences also, being no less troublesome to the English in those times than Dunkirk has been to us in ours, so that it was deservedly looked upon as the key to both kingdoms, which no doubt is the reason that there have arisen so many contentions who should keep it. Of these, the siege of Calais, or rather the blockade, for it was shut up both by land and sea, was the most memorable, as it withstood the efforts of Edward III a whole year, and was not terminated at last but by famine and extreme misery. The gallantry of Eustace de Saint-Pierre, who first offered himself a victim for his fellow citizens, has ranked his name with heroes. As it will not take up above 50 pages, it would be injustice to the reader not to give him a minute account of that romantic transaction, as well as of the siege itself, in Rapin's own words. Calo bravo.